Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Insight with your host Alamdar Khan. And yes, as you know, we give you sports information from all across the globe. You guys can surely reach out to us on our social media handle, which is at the rate of Indus News Sports. That works both for Twitter and for Instagram. But anyways, we'll go to the headlines first. And yes, from the world of Euro 2020, England stunned Germany with 2 late goals to book a place for the quarterfinals, while Ukraine strikes little late on the extra time to set up 2-1 victory against Sweden. And yes, from the world of tennis, Wimbledon, Roger Federer advances on return as Adrian Manarino retires injured, while Medvedev takes revenge from Leonard Struff in Wimbledon opener on Tuesday. And yes, from the world of NBA, Atlanta Hawks win against Milwaukee Bucks 110-88 in Game 4 of the conference finals. And yes, from the world of Tokyo Olympics, Romanian tennis player Simona Halep has withdrawn from the Olympics as she continues to battle her calf injury. And yes, those were the headlines. And talking about Euro 2020, obviously the round of 16 finally comes up to an end. And not to forget, what an interesting match that was. Obviously, England stuns Germany 2-0. Not only that, if you look back into situations, obviously Ukraine also managed to get through. But to discuss more of the in-depth analysis, we have with us Ali all the way from the UK. Ali, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me again.
Great. So Ali, I'd start off with obviously the victory that England managed to get against Germany, and I think it's been ages that this has actually happened, and Germans were not truly at their best. So what's your take to begin with about this match?
Well, I think you're right, the Germans weren't at their best, and certainly going into the match, you felt that England were the stronger team, and that if they could forget the history and the rivalry between one-sided rivalry between England and Germany and just focus on the opposition, they should have enough to get through, and indeed that's how it proved. And again, England's defence was impressive. Obviously, Muller had that big chance. But apart from that, Germany struggled to create. And even if it wasn't the most thrilling, England were efficient. And I think they were good value for the win in the end.
Right. And if you look back into, because when we talk about Germany, they have definitely been more like the German machines who are always out there. Initially, when we used to look back into football fixtures, back in the day, it was East Germany, West Germany, and they would always be out there. And they have never lost any knockout match in any international competition since 1966, if I'm not wrong. So what do you think? Because I think they managed to get there a few players who weren't really in fact in the team, to be precise, but they were brought back just to ensure that they could perform the very best. So what perfectly do you think that did they lack? Because at the very start of the Euro 2020, they also had a few defeats which were alarming for them, and I think they could have worked on it.
Yeah, well, I think they're in a strange situation, really, with the manager leaving after the tournament. That was known. I think they seemed like a team that was in between eras and wasn't really sure of itself. I mean, you sort of heard a lot that they were a team in transition, which I don't think you'd necessarily disagree with. But as you say, when you are Germany and you're as good as Germany and you can bring back people like Muller and like Hummels, you really should be going to try and win every tournament. But I think they just lacked a bit of cutting edge, certainly up front. I mean, that was the case yesterday. It was the case against France. Against Hungary, they didn't really seem to have too many ideas. They just kind of battered, and eventually 2 goals kind of happened rather than being anything Germany created. So I think they were just a bit confused with what they were trying to do. And that one game where they were successful against Portugal, I mean, all their goals were very similar. They essentially came from attacks from the fullbacks, and kind of once teams guarded against that, and certainly England set up against that with their back five. I think Germany was just a bit short of ideas and a bit short of cutting edge and talent up front, if you're being brutally honest.
Right. And looking back into them yesterday, obviously there were around 43,000 fans that were actually present at Wembley. So what was the enthusiasm? Because I think it's been ages that we've seen something line up like this after a while because of the COVID-19 situation. So what was the energy like? Because I think it was super, super phenomenal. And obviously England managing to do that. We also saw David Beckham sitting there. We also saw, the Prince sitting there. We saw so many celebrities sitting there watching the match. And I think everybody had the best. And I think, Harry Kane managed to, hit the nail to the coffin at the end of the match.
Yeah, like you say, I mean, the atmosphere came across as being pretty spectacular on television, and certainly the fact that we've not been used to that, at least in England, we've not seen that for so long. That must have given England a boost. I mean, it's worth noting that before COVID came along and Dublin was stripped of its games, this match was supposed to be in Dublin rather than in London. And imagine a crowd of predominantly Irish people would have been, if not outright supporting Germany, it certainly would have been far less partisan from an English perspective and far less supportive for them. But like you say, I mean, it was a great occasion for English football, and the fact that they hadn't beaten Germany in a knockout game for so long, and it is such a one-sided rivalry. And obviously Gareth Southgate and all that's happened with him at Wembley before against Germany in Euro '96, it did feel quite cathartic. And now they've kind of beaten one of football's major powers in a major tournament. It should give them confidence and kind of lift the weight off their back going forward. Because as I'm sure we'll get on to, certainly the quarterfinal on paper would look like a far easier match than the one they just had to play.
Right. And would also want to talk about the second match that took place. Obviously, Ukraine managed to win against Sweden 2-0. I think pretty much underdog's perspective, if we take it that way. But I still think, because we see now a lot of, for instance, we talk about Croatia. We were having a lot of hopes with Croatia as well, but they managed to lose against Spain. But let's talk about this in generally, that now they're through, and Ukraine is now definitely going to be on fire in terms of their hopes being high. So what's your take on this match?
Well, it was actually a pretty good game, I think. It's certainly in England, so it kind of was an afterthought and a bit criticised. I think it was a pretty good game. Both teams went for it, which was good to see. Made an enjoyable game. And Ukraine, I mean, you'd worry about their injury situation, certainly, because a lot of their players seem to be carrying injuries or pick up injuries through the match. But they had a couple of moments of real quality. They've got some good players on that side. I mean, Zinchenko obviously scored the first goal and then made the second with a fantastic cross. We've seen what Yarmolenko can do already this tournament. So they're certainly a side that can be dangerous, and if they can be organised in defence, they're going to be hard to break down, especially England have had trouble breaking teams down. But I mean, Ukraine's spirit as well is probably worth highlighting, because obviously it had the fantastic comeback against the Netherlands earlier in the tournament. Okay, they went on to lose the game still after that, but I think they're just another one of these teams similar to Switzerland before them, or even Croatia against Spain. I think there seems to be a lot more fearlessness about the so-called underdogs when they enter these ties, and a kind of acceptance that when they are down or if they're trailing, that if they go out, and that's it. So they may as well go down fighting and have a real go at it going forward. Certainly Ukraine, I think, did that after the red card. They seemed a bit hesitant, but eventually they kind of accepted that this was their chance, go for it. And like I say, Zinchenko puts a fantastic cross into the box, and they win the game in dramatic and from them really pleasing fashion.
Right, and talking about the last minute goals, they are always unforgettable. Would also want to talk about the round of 16 itself, because now, in fact, we should discuss more on the quarterfinal side, because on Friday we have Switzerland versus Spain. So what's your take to begin with on that first quarterfinal? What do you think would be, which team would be looking forward to? Because I think Spain is right now in the superpower mode, like they scored 5 goals against Croatia. So what's your take on this upcoming match on Friday?
Well, yeah, I think you're right about Spain. I think if you had to pick a favourite for the tournament now, for me, that would be who I would identify, just because I feel like from what they've overcome, both on a personal level for players like Morata, who's obviously been through a pretty torrid tournament, but then scores that fantastic and crucial fourth goal against Croatia, to the fact that they've had the coronavirus outbreak. Luis Enrique's squad selection was very unpopular, and obviously, if you're a Spain manager who doesn't pick a single Real Madrid player, that's certainly a gutsy call. But it feels like it's all coming together for them. I think against Croatia, they were largely really impressive and really good, and it was just obviously a spirited Croatia fight back and a kind of freak first goal. So I think Spain have to be the overwhelming favourites, and they look like they're sort of really coming into their prime, and they've warmed up to the tournament nicely. But having said all that, you would have said that France are the overwhelming favourites against Switzerland, and certainly when they were 3-1 up,
Right.
It seemed like the game was gone. Switzerland produced one of really the most remarkable comebacks we've seen in international football in recent years. So it would be silly to write off Switzerland. It does feel like this will be sort of a game too far for them, and that they've had their peak in beating France and Spain, the other better team. But as the last round showed, you never quite know. That's for sure.
One of the most interesting lineups that I'm looking forward to will be Belgium versus Italy, because I think both the teams are spot on, and I think that would probably be one of the major events or major matches to begin with that everybody will be surely looking forward to. What's your take on this particular match that would happen on Saturday, Belgium versus Italy?
Well, I would agree with you on that. I think it's the pick of the quarterfinals. I mean, the one of the key questions for Belgium is going to be fitness. I believe that both Kevin De Bruyne and Eden Hazard were not training with the main group today, which isn't a great sign, but doesn't necessarily mean they won't be fit to play. But obviously, they're two of the very best players in the world, so there would be a big miss. I thought Belgium were a bit underwhelming against Portugal. If I'm honest, I think that had Portugal had a bit more guile about them when they were pushing for an equaliser, they could well have got one. I think Belgium kind of were too passive and sat back. But they're a supremely talented team. I mean, even if they don't have De Bruyne and Eden Hazard, they've got a series of other really good attackers, headlined by Lukaku. As for Italy, obviously they were so good in the group stage, and then kind of seemed to underwhelm against Austria. But I think their strength and depth really shone through, and the fact there was two substitutes who scored the goals for them against Austria was no coincidence, and kind of demonstrates that they are, while they may not have the superstars that you're used to from the past, they do have a talented and deep squads. Like you say, I think it'll be, on paper at least, it's the pick of the quarterfinals. It'll be a fascinating game.
Right.
I'd probably lean towards Belgium, but like I say, whether they have a full complement of health will be one of the key questions. And certainly, if De Bruyne is not playing, that's going to give Italy a huge boost.
Right. And if we look back into how Belgium got into the quarterfinals, as you discussed, obviously, the match against Portugal, and I think by the end of the match, literally Portugal had most of the possessions. They had a few shots, even on the post, if you remember. They were pretty much close on that equalizer, but I think now they will have to work more hard, because in terms of Italy, I think Italy is surely ready to be out there. So I'll just have a quick word on Czech Republic and Denmark and Ukraine versus England. What's your take, and how do you quickly define both the teams, both the matches actually?
Ukraine versus England, I'd say, as we kind of mentioned earlier, England on paper certainly is stronger, and they should be looking forward to this as an easier game than what they've just had. But Ukraine do have some quality, and the fact that England won't be playing at Wembley Stadium for the first time potentially could throw a spanner in the works and make it difficult for them. As for the Denmark-Czech Republic game, I think that again should be a really interesting one, because they were two of the more impressive sides in the last 16. I mean, Denmark absolutely smashed Wales. It was quite embarrassing how one-sided that was towards the end. And I thought the Czechs were really good against the Dutch. And obviously the Netherlands went down to 10 men, which helped. But it's by no means a given that a team's going to take advantage of that. And the Czechs did that superbly. Obviously they've got Patrick Schick up front, who has just had a brilliant tournament and looks to be in excellent form, which is going to make them dangerous. I would lean towards the Czechs. I feel like Denmark have been riding such a wave of emotion, and it's been they're kind of the neutral choice. Everyone likes them, but there's a certain steeliness about this Czech side, and kind of a ruthlessness that I think is admirable. And
well, to be honest, Ali, let's hope for the best, because I think it surely is going to be an interesting weekend for us all. Thank you so much for being a part of the show and discussing your 2020 with us.
No worries, enjoy the games.
Thanks. That was Ali all the way from the UK, and yes, he discussed the in-depth analysis of how the quarterfinals are going to be in the future. Now we have Switzerland versus Spain, that is on Friday. Belgium versus Italy, that's on Saturday. Czech Republic versus Denmark is also on Saturday, and Ukraine versus England is on Sunday. Anyways, guys, we'll take a quick break. Once we get back from the break, there is more news coming up your way. See you guys after the break. yes, welcome back from the break. And yes, before the break, we were discussing Euro 2020, the quarterfinals that are surely underway now, starting from Friday. But anyways, we want to talk about another major happening in the world of tennis. If we talk about Wimbledon, to begin with, we surely want to talk about Roger Federer's advancement as Mannarino retires injured. But there's so much more that we want to discuss. And to discuss the in-depth analysis of Wimbledon right now, we have with us Pete Zebron, who's an expert all the way from US. Pete, welcome to the show.
Wonderful to be back. Thank you so much.
Great. So, Pete, we'll start off discussing the first match. Obviously, Roger Federer's advancement, and obviously Mannarino's injury to begin with. So, how do you see it developing further for him?
Well, Federer, this was always going to be a tough ask. Federer, obviously, not much prep coming into Wimbledon, losing to Felix Auger-Aliassime in his second match back in Halle. So, not as much prep work as he had hoped. Mannarino, the only career title he has is on grass in Den Bosch a few years ago. So Mannarino, one of the few Frenchmen who really likes grass. So this was going to be a difficult matchup for Federer. Obviously, he got off to a very good start, played well. Little off track in the second set. He did lose that in a breaker, but still, I really wasn't seeing anything really alarming. Things went away in the third set. He then found his groove in the fourth set, was figuring things out, and unfortunately, that's when Mannarino went down and things changed, and he couldn't continue 1 point into the fifth.
Right. And if we look into Mannarino's, obviously he had a knee injury. So is there any specific update with regards to that? Because I think it would have been a serious one because he was unable to continue the match to begin with.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything more on that. Obviously, flare up and pain right away. He unable to continue. Nobody wants to withdraw or retire from a match at Wimbledon on center court, no less, against Federer. But right. Obviously, the pain must have been so great that he wasn't able to continue. So it's just what it is at the moment. I mean, even if you ice it down and 2 hours later you're feeling better, that doesn't do you any good in the present moment.
Right. And if you talk about Federer, but either going to face Richard Gasquet or Yuichi Sugiura, if I'm not wrong, what do you think? How strong is he right now in terms of his performance? Because we have recently seen not the very best of Federer lately. So how do you see it developing further for him in this big Wimbledon title thing?
I think he'll be fine. I expect Gasquet will be there, and Richard Gasquet, another Frenchman whose best results, ironically, are on grass. He's reached 2 semifinals at Wimbledon in his career, right. His best ever showings at a major. But really, Gasquet, beautiful backhand, but really seemingly has not really been able to put it all together. I believe he got as high as number 7 in the world. But, at the time, back in the day, when Nadal and Gasquet were both coming up, everybody thought that would be the great rivalry. And Gasquet's never defeated Nadal. And Gasquet really, unfortunately for the French, has never done as expected. So Federer has his number. I think the head-to-head is something like 18-2 in favor of Federer. I fully expect Gasquet to be there and Federer to continue.
Right. Looking forward for that interesting lineup ahead. We'd also want to talk about Medvedev's victory over Jan Lennard. How do you see that? Because I think this was one of his revenge that he had to take.
Yeah, absolutely. Lost to Struff just a couple of tournaments ago, his first round match in Halle. We have to keep in mind, though, the short window, the short turnaround. Medvedev did exceptionally well at Roland Garros. Didn't really have the time needed to get used to the grass, unlike Struff. Struff took him out, tough customer. Very ironic that they met again here so early in the first round. Right. Medvedev, I liked what I saw from him. His numbers were good. The ace and double fault differential was fantastic, as were the winners to unforced errors. So just a little bit of a blip for Medvedev getting through in 4. But yeah, a revenge match, and he's very happy to get through that one.
Right. One more match and one more person that I want to talk about, definitely. I want to talk about the last match that took place of Tsitsipas, to be honest. He also lost, which was kind of surprising. So what's your take on that?
Well, yeah, not only lost the match and lost the final at Roland Garros, but unfortunately, he lost his grandmother. He found out about that the morning of Roland Garros, and yes, he got off to a good start against Djokovic. We're all human beings. I think that's still hurting him quite a bit, and right. Clay is obviously his best surface, so no surprise in what he was able to do at Roland Garros. Grass is another matter. He's 22 years old. Right. I think he'll be able to figure that out. But once again, just going back to the abbreviated schedule, the fact that Roland Garros was pushed back a week, And a lot of these guys just didn't have the time needed to make the transition from clay to grass, and Tsitsipas just wasn't there, not only in getting ready to take the court on grass, probably mentally as well, and everybody's coming for you at a major.
Right, but in generally, with regard to Tsitsipas's performance, I think he's one of the major phenomenal players in terms of tennis.
Absolutely. Nowhere to go but up for him at this point. He's beaten everybody that he needs to beat on tour. Right. And it's just obviously he's shown what he's going to be doing on clay going forward. It's just the other surfaces right now. Obviously, he's had some nice results at the Australian Open as well. Grass is the last of the surfaces for him to figure out.
Right. And one more interesting thing that I would want to talk about, obviously sad for all the fans out there. We want to talk about Serena Williams, obviously the standing ovation that was given to her and was asked to retire. So, and obviously her ending up in tears, and after that leaving a statement on Instagram account saying that I was heartbroken to have to withdraw today after the injury on my right leg. So what's your take on her leaving Wimbledon now?
Horrible situation for her. The window is really closing for her quickly with respect to winning a major. She's gotten there. She's gotten several finals since she has gotten within reach of Margaret Court, but has lost several finals. You have to win 7 to win a major. She really thought, I think, as well as all of her fans, people here in the U.S., that this was a prime opportunity for her. Right. With again other prominent members in the field not participating in Wimbledon. She's already said she's not going to play the Olympics, so she was front center. In fact, Patrick Morlago was working with her, during the French Open, even though he's doing some work with Tsitsipas, was not there for the Tsitsipas semifinal because he was working with Serena on grass, getting her ready for this. And so this, nobody expected this to happen, but unfortunate, the back-to-back retirements on center court with people slipping and knee injuries. Very tragic.
Right. Well, Pete, thank you so much for being a part of the show and discussing the world of Wimbledon with us. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So that was Pete, and obviously he gave us the in-depth analysis with regards to what's truly happening in the world of Wimbledon. We'll quickly jump over to the world of NBA because there's a lot of development on that account as well. I'm talking about Hawks' victory. Yes, Hawks managed to win against Bucks 110-88 in Game 4 on the conference finals. It's going to be very interesting. Why? Because Giannis actually left. He had a left knee injury, and it was a very, very bad injury. And because of that, as soon as he left, the score were 52-62. But as soon as he left in the third quarter, things changed, and automatically the entire momentum of Bucks went down. Let's hope that Giannis manages to get back, because I think that's like, obviously we all know he's the MVP anyway. So we're looking forward to see how things develop for them. And Game 5 will be played on Thursday in Milwaukee, which is going to be a home ground edge for the Bucks. Let's hope things work out for them, and let's hope that we manage to see Giannis as the team lead for Bucks. Anyways, this was from the world of NBA. Quickly jumping over to the world of Olympics. Yes, talking about Olympics, as we discussed earlier, tennis as well. So I'm going to talk about Simona Halep, who actually has withdrawn from the Olympics because of the fact that she has a consistent calf injury. So I think most of these injuries have always been stuck to a lot of players out there. If we look into Andy Murray, he actually had one of this groin injury that actually continued growing. So we wish her the very best. She's the world number 3, but she's unable to compete in the Olympic Games, which is surely going to be a loss. But the tennis tournament will be starting in Tokyo from the 24th of July to 1st of August. So this was pretty much it from the world of sports. If you guys want to reach out to us, you can on our social media handle, which is at the rate of Indus News Sports. That works basically both for Twitter and for Instagram. Till then, take good care of yourselves, and bye-bye.